was dead. The doctors confirmed it, but his eyes wouldn't close, no matter how hard we tried. It was as if he wanted to see one last thing, and as long as those eyes stayed open, things started to change in the morgue. For me, it was a night when everything began anew, in a place where I thought death was the end. I've been in this business for over 20 years. I've seen everything related to death. I know every detail. The coldness of the bodies, their silence, those empty stares. Over time, you get used to it. You even develop that clinical detachment required for the job. Everything has an explanation. Everything is based on scientific data. At least, that's what I thought. The morgue, for me, was the last bastion of science, the place where life ended and only the body remained. But some nights, that fortress gets shaken. And on that particular night, my fortress was completely demolished. This is Marrow Creek Funeral Home. It's an old building, built in the early part of the last century. Red brick, white trim. It's got a small chapel out front, and in the back, there's the prep room where I spend most of my time, and the cold storage unit. I usually work nights. Fewer distractions, fewer visitors. Just me, my instruments, and the low hum of the embalming machine. That night was no different. It was a Thursday night, already dark, with a thin drizzle outside. There was a lot of work to do. It was a little past midnight. I was finishing up the last case. His name was Arthur Jenkins. He was in his 70s, passed away peacefully in his sleep. No family. There was no obvious trauma to his body, just the calm stillness that comes with old age and peace. As I worked, my little radio played classical music. That's my routine. The building was completely silent otherwise, just the hum of the machine and the sound of my movements. I was focused. Everything was as it should be. Arthur on the prep table, face serene. I finished the embalming procedure meticulously, as always. The fluids had replaced the blood, preserving him for his final presentation. He lay there, serene. Time to dress him, prepare him for the viewing, though no family had requested one. I went to lower his eyelids, a routine, respectful gesture. I pressed gently, thumb and forefinger, on each lid. They should have slid down, stayed closed, but they didn't. I tried again, a little more pressure. His eyelids, instead of yielding, felt stiff, resistant, as if the muscles beneath held a stubborn, unyielding tension. They would close a fraction, then spring back open, revealing those cloudy, lifeless eyes. It was unsettling. I'd seen this before, of course. Sometimes rigor mortis can affect the facial muscles unevenly, or there might be some underlying medical condition. It was rare, but not impossible. The solution was usually simple: a dab of Mortician's glue, or placing cotton pads over the eyes to hold the lids down until the glue set. I retrieved the glue, a small tube designed for such moments. I applied a tiny bead along the edge of each lid, carefully pressing them shut. I held them for a full minute, counting slowly, feeling the slight stickiness take hold. When I released them, they stayed closed. A sigh of relief escaped me. Just a stubborn case, nothing more. I went about my work, arranging his hair, checking his clothes. My routine was restored. But as I stepped back to admire my handiwork, to ensure every detail was perfect for Arthur's dignified departure, I saw it. A sliver of white, then a deeper gray, peeking from under his right eyelid. It had opened, just a fraction, but undeniably open. A cold prickle ran down my spine. I walked back, slowly, my boots echoing too loudly in the otherwise silent prep room. I gently pushed it closed again. It felt stiff, resisting my touch. I held it for longer this time, a full 2 minutes. When I released, both eyes stayed shut. Good. I went to my desk to fill out the paperwork, but I found my gaze drawn back to him, again and again. My eyes darted to his face, half expecting to see them open again. I tried to focus on the forms, on the neat rows of information, but my mind kept replaying the image of that stubbornly open eye. This wasn't normal, not really. Most bodies, once prepped, yielded easily. This felt defiant. An hour later I was cleaning up, putting away my tools. I glanced at Arthur one last time before covering him with a sheet. Both eyes were open, not wide, not startled, but fully, unequivocally open, staring blankly at the ceiling. They were milky, dull, but undeniably fixed. A profound unease settled over me. This was beyond rigor mortis. This was beyond any medical explanation I had. It felt deliberate, as if he was actively refusing to close his eyes. It was a silence, but a watching silence, an unnerving gaze from the dead. I didn't try to close them again. I covered him with the sheet, feeling a strange mix of frustration and genuine dread. I locked the prep room and the entire funeral home, every bolt, every door, twice. I didn't return to the prep room until morning. The entire night I felt watched, even from my small office at the front of the building. The image of those open, unblinking eyes burned behind my eyelids. The next morning, the day shift arrived. My assistant, Maria, a kind and pragmatic woman, was setting up for the next embalming. I tried to sound casual. Arthur Jenkins, in Prep Room 1, had a bit of trouble with his eyelids last night. They kept opening. Maria, used to my occasional dry humor, just nodded. Some of them are stubborn, Frank. I'll make sure they stay shut. But later that day, Maria came to my office, her face pale. Frank, she whispered, Arthur's eyes, they won't stay closed. Her voice was hushed, almost reverent. I used the glue, I used the cotton, I even tried a little pressure for a few minutes. They just spring back open. It's like he's looking right through me. A cold knot tightened in my stomach. It wasn't just me. Maria, who had seen countless bodies, was unnerved. Did you feel anything else? I asked, my voice low. She thought for a moment. Just a cold spot around the table, and a faint, really faint smell. Not decay. Something almost sweet, like old burnt sugar, but off. The smell. I hadn't noticed it last night, amidst the embalming fluids, but the description sent a fresh wave of dread through me. It wasn't the smell of death, which I knew intimately. It was something else. Something alien. Over the next few days, Arthur Jenkins became an unspoken topic among the staff. His viewing was scheduled for Monday, but no one had contacted us. He was unclaimed. Still, he lay in Prep Room 1, his eyes open, a silent sentinel. Several staff members, when passing the prep room, reported feeling a sudden drop in temperature or hearing a faint, almost imperceptible whisper from inside. No one could ever pinpoint the source. No one saw anything, but everyone felt something. The whispers were always too soft to decipher, too fleeting to catch, like a breath or a thought, just on the edge of hearing. I spent more time in Prep Room 1, not working, just observing. I'd sit in a corner, out of sight of the door, and just watch Arthur. His eyes remained open, unblinking, fixed on the ceiling. I found myself talking to him, quietly, under my breath. "What is it, Arthur?" I'd ask. "What do you want to see? What are you trying to tell us?" The silence would answer, heavy, and knowing. But the air around him always felt different. A subtle shift, like a barely perceptible current in an otherwise still room. A feeling of intense, focused attention emanating from him. One night, alone in the funeral home, I decided to take a more direct approach. I turned off all the lights in the prep room, leaving only the dim emergency exit sign glowing faintly in the corridor outside. I wanted to remove all distractions, all external stimuli. I lit a single candle on the workbench, its flickering flame casting long, dancing shadows. I stood by Arthur, feeling the profound stillness of the room, the oppressive weight of his gaze. I put my hand on his chest, a gesture of connection, of shared humanity. His skin was cold, unyielding. "Arthur," I whispered, my voice barely audible in the vast silence. "If there's something you need to say, something you need us to know, show us. We are listening." Just then, the candle flame flickered wildly, dancing erratically, though there was no draft. A cold pocket of air swirled around me, colder than the usual chill of the morgue, and from Arthur's open mouth, a sound. Not a scream, not a whisper, but a faint, almost imperceptible click. It was the sound of a tongue unsticking from the roof of a dry mouth, a sound that should not have been possible. Then silence again. The candle flame stabilized. The cold receded. I stared at his open mouth, then at his eyes. They remained open, fixed. The click had been too real, too specific. It wasn't the building settling. It wasn't my imagination. It was him, a subtle, almost defiant act from the deceased. But what did it mean? A click. It was like a silent message, a sound trying to escape, but trapped. I went back to his personal effects. The wallet, the keys, the pack of gum. And then I saw it, tucked deep inside a forgotten pocket of his wallet, a tiny folded piece of paper. It was old, yellowed, with faint pencil marks. It was a receipt from a local dry cleaner, dated almost 30 years ago, and scrawled on the back, in faint, almost illegible handwriting, were two words: "The lock." "The lock?" I whispered to myself. What lock? What did it mean? Arthur Jenkins, a man with no family, no apparent secrets, now seemed to be hinting at something. His open eyes, his faint click, this cryptic note. It was a puzzle, a dead man's puzzle. I started digging. It wasn't easy. Arthur had been a recluse in his later years. But I had the dry cleaner's receipt. I found the old dry cleaner, long since closed, but the building was still there, now a dusty antique shop. I asked the owner if he remembered the dry cleaner. He vaguely recalled the old proprietor, a man named Mr. Henderson, who had lived above the shop. "Odd fellow," the owner had said, "always tinkering with old clocks and locks." Locks. My blood ran cold. I started looking into Arthur Jenkins's past, public records, old newspaper archives. It was a slow, painstaking process. I found very little. A brief mention of a small inheritance years ago, a few old addresses, then a breakthrough, an old property record, a small derelict warehouse on the outskirts of town, registered in Arthur Jenkins' name, purchased decades ago. It had been largely forgotten, overgrown with weeds, a place no one visited. I drove out there, the cryptic note burning in my pocket. The warehouse was dilapidated, its windows broken, its corrugated iron siding rusted. It looked like a ghost of industry. I found a heavy old metal door at the back. It was secured with a massive, ancient padlock. The lock. My hands trembled as I looked at it. This had to be it. I tried Arthur's keys, one by one. Old rusty keys, for a house he no longer owned, for a life that was gone. None of them fit. Frustration mingled with a growing sense of urgency. Arthur's eyes, they were still open. They were waiting for me to solve this. I found an old rusted crowbar nearby, and, with a surge of desperate energy, forced the lock open. The ancient metal shrieked in protest, then broke. The heavy door groaned inward, revealing a cavernous dust-filled interior. Sunlight filtered through the grimy windows, illuminating motes of dust dancing in the air. The warehouse was mostly empty, save for stacks of old rotting boxes, and in the center, shrouded under a heavy canvas, a single, large wooden object. My heart pounded as I approached it. I pulled back the canvas, revealing an intricately carved, antique grandfather clock. It was beautiful, ornate, clearly a collector's item, but it was also broken. Its pendulum was still, its face cracked, and on the inside of the clock door, carved into the aged wood, were a series of symbols, not letters, not numbers, just symbols. Strange, almost mystical markings that seemed to hum with an unseen energy. And then I understood. Arthur Jenkins hadn't been trying to see something. He had been trying to show me something. This clock, these symbols, this was the lock. Not a physical lock, but a key to a secret, a code he had carried even in death. I spent weeks researching the symbols, delving into ancient languages, forgotten occult texts, esoteric codes. It was a world utterly alien to my scientific mind, yet I felt compelled to follow Arthur's silent lead. The morgue, the embalming, the cold logic of death, it all faded into the background. My life became consumed by Arthur's final message. I eventually deciphered them after countless sleepless nights. They weren't a treasure map or a hidden fortune. They were a series of philosophical musings, a personal code reflecting a belief system Arthur had developed over decades. A belief in the interconnectedness of all things, in a cosmic consciousness, in a purpose beyond physical death, a profound, intricate philosophy he had spent his life crafting, hiding in plain sight. He hadn't wanted his eyes to close because he wanted someone to see his life's work, his final, greatest truth. He was a recluse, but he wasn't alone in his thoughts. He wanted them found, understood, appreciated. I returned to the funeral home, the deciphered meaning of the symbols heavy in my mind. I went to prep room 1. Arthur Jenkins lay there, just as I had left him. His eyes were still open. I looked at him, truly looked at him, for the first time not with fear, but with understanding, with a profound sense of awe and respect. I had seen his work. I had understood his message. I gently, reverently, placed my hand on his eyelids, and this time they closed, softly, completely, without resistance, a peaceful, final rest. It was as if, having delivered his message, his soul could finally find solace. The cold spot around him was gone. The faint, sweet, burnt sugar smell had vanished. The room felt lighter. I never saw his eyes open again. I cremated him the next day, but the experience, Arthur's silent defiance, his hidden message, his profound philosophy changed me. I still work at Marrow Creek Funeral Home. I still embalm the dead. But now, when I close their eyes, I wonder what unspoken truths they carry, what messages they might still be trying to deliver. I no longer see them as mere bodies. I see them as libraries of untold stories, of hidden philosophies, of final silent calls for understanding. And sometimes, when the embalming machine hums in the quiet of the night, I listen, not for sounds, but for whispers of truth, for the echoes of lives that refuse to be truly silent. Hello friends, thank you all for joining me on this chilling journey. Your support means everything to me, and I absolutely love reading your reactions and personal experiences in the comment section. If this story kept you on the edge of your seat or sent shivers down your spine, please make sure to hit that like button and consider subscribing for more haunting tales. Have you ever experienced anything similar to this? Or perhaps you have your own unexplainable story to share. I genuinely love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Each of your stories adds another fascinating layer to our growing community of horror enthusiasts. And if you think someone else might enjoy a good scare, don't forget to share this video with them. Stay tuned for more spine-chilling stories. And remember, sometimes the scariest tales are the ones that could happen to any of us. Thank you again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video, if you dare.